Hey, what's up, guys? So we got a message from someone who is writing a screenplay, and there are some characters in the screenplay that are in foster care.
Actually, the main character.
The main character. And she wanted to know some more information about like kids in foster care, and like what's true, what isn't, like what are some myths. And her questions were like really good.
Really good questions.
So we thought we would share them with you guys.
Yeah, and I checked with her first. Her name is Kaitlyns. She's the one who is writing the screenplay. So she has just some really great questions. So I asked her if we could just like record our answers because it'll be easier to kind of just explain it to her, but also a great way to kind of crowdsource information, and hopefully that can help her write this screenplay and have like an accurate depiction of foster care. Here are the questions from Caitlin. She says, character's father has just died, why she has gone into emergency foster care, and her mother is not in her life. So that is kind of the circumstances for this 16-year-old girl. And so here are the questions that she has. How often does a caseworker communicate with the foster parent and child? And how often do they meet? This is probably a state-by-state answer. Might actually make sense to kind of find out like where this is actually going to take place, and maybe some other people can chime in where they're located if it's different or the same. For Ohio, the county caseworker is required to meet with the child once per month.
At the start, though, after the child's placed with the foster parents, they come back a week after.
Yeah, within a week.
After.
They have to come in with.
Yeah.
They have to come back within that week to do kind of like a check-in, and then after that, it's once per month. What kind of discussion happens, and what does the caseworker do when the child is brought to the new home? Are there any meetings that follow? So some of this is dependent on the caseworker, and I know we have caseworkers who watch our videos, so if you guys can chime in, that would be like super helpful. Our experience has been, with our first placement, the caseworker was really concerned about how the kid was feeling, so they wanted to make sure that that child felt that they felt safe in our home, and that if they felt uncomfortable or any red flags that she felt, I don't want to say not comfortable, because I don't think anything is going to be like comfortable for these kids, but
Not safe.
Depending on like the backstory of the kid, the caseworker might be dropping them off and checking to make sure that there aren't certain like trigger points, I guess. Our most recent placement, the caseworker, I think that if I hadn't have asked questions of the caseworker, she would have dropped off Miss A and just left.
Yeah.
Not that she didn't like care.
She's had a lot on her plate.
Lots
to do.
I don't think there was anything that she was like really worried about, so she was just like, here she is. Go ahead and get her settled. So I think she's also asking what discussions happen like during those monthly visits. It's really just a matter of like checking in with the child to make sure that they are getting what they need, that they aren't having any like, big concerns that are popping up, like if they're struggling with school, if they don't feel safe, if, making sure that they're getting to the doctor and getting like their medical needs met. What are some of the other things that...
I think socially too, the last time the caseworker was here, it was just me and Miss A that were here, and she kind of talked about like friends that she, have kind of been making at school, mm-hmm. and like how school's been going, both education and social, because that's almost as important. We actually have 2 caseworkers that we meet with. So we have the county caseworker who is in charge of the case and the child. And then we have another caseworker who's from our agency that we're licensed with, and both of them actually meet once a month to meet with the child. So we actually have to go through 2 meetings, plus the guardian ad litem. So she comes out, and I think that she's supposed to come out once a month, even though we haven't met her yet. And then other like random assessments. There's an assessment that is conducted within a couple of weeks of the child being placed. And it's basically kind of like a mental health check to see if there are any services that the kid might need. So like, are there specific, does the child need to go into therapy to help deal with, certain traumas that they've experienced? Hi. He just wants to be in the video.
He really does. He doesn't want to sit. He wants to have fun. So I think that kind of answers the first question. Wow, that's a really long answer. Sorry. Instead of the child being transferred to a different home after an emergency placement, can the placement become long-term if the child and foster parents want that. Does the social worker just agree to keep the child in the home for longer, or are there rules regarding emergency foster parents? So this is getting at so ideally the child will be placed with a home that ends up being their foster home. Although there are some times where they can't immediately find a foster home, so they have to put them in a temporary placement until they can identify a foster family that's a good fit for the child. I think that's kind of I don't know how often that happens, but there is a potential that you get, as a foster parent, a call for a foster child, and it's not going to be long term, and it's just kind of like a landing pad until they get something more permanent. But I don't know how often that's the case, honestly.
Are they also talking about just permanently not going back to their parents? That's kind of how I took it.
Oh, no. So yeah, we should clarify that. So for in this case, for this screenplay, the father has died and the mother is not in her life.
Yeah.
So I think permanency would not be reunification, obviously. So in that case, it would be adoption or finding family or friends, which would be counted as kinship. So I feel like for the purposes of the screenplay.
Yeah, it's pretty common that even after a child is placed with a foster home, the county and or agency still looks for kinship.
Yes.
They call relatives or, people that were close to the family because they prefer that over foster homes. So
I think for both of our placements so far, we have not been the first home that the child has gone to. They, and the circumstances might be that they might have tried kinship and then that didn't work out, and so they're moving to a foster home, or they have tried a foster home and things didn't work out, so they're trying to find a better fit. But yeah, they will most often be trying to find kinship over foster care. That's question number 2. What is the procedure for signing the child up for school, and how involved is the social worker in the process? Okay, so I just experienced this, so I'll talk about this one. I had thought, based on the information that I had, that the caseworker would be super, super involved because they have guardianship over the child. So technically, we are not the child's guardians. So whenever there's a slip of paper that comes home from the school that says parent or guardian, technically the caseworker would have to be signing the more important documents. Now, we end up signing certain things Miss A came home with a syllabus for a class, and it just acknowledges that the parent has seen it too, and hey, these are the rules of the classroom. So we'll sign stuff like that, but really big stuff, the caseworker has to sign because we're not the guardians. So it gets complicated, but my process with Miss A, getting her signed up for school, is that I filled out the registration, and then there was an appointment that I attended with the school, and either the caseworker had to be there or documentation had to be provided to make sure that there were court documents that the school received, that the school had the badge of the caseworker. So our caseworker didn't have to go there. She just scanned a copy of her badge and the court documents, and that was all that was needed. They don't have to be super involved, but I feel like I'm a very proactive parent, so I was getting on top of everything, the registration, the documentation. I think that some foster parents might just say, hey, caseworker, you need to take care of that. Sometimes you'll get responses and sometimes you won't. So that's why I'm a little bit more proactive with that. So caseworkers, try to chime in the comments and help us explain how that works with getting kids signed up for school.
You want a little bink?
Binky time.
Let me get your Dumbo.
That's Eeyore.
Oh, Eeyore looks like Dumbo.
Okay, so next question. He's just not happy. If the child wanted to go on vacation with a friend's family, is there a limit to how long they can go? And what are the steps foster parents need to take to clear this if it's allowed? So this is actually talking about a friend's family.
Yeah. So vacation with our family, if it's out of state, has to be approved.
By the county and the parents.
Yes.
The biological parents.
Yep. If it was out of state with a friend's family, I don't think it could happen, right?
Yeah, there'd be a lot of hoops that would have to be jumped through. They'd have to get county approval, parent approval.
Yeah.
And I also think that there's this thing called prudent parenting, which is a lot of gray area, but it's where in the state of Ohio, a foster parent can make like certain judgment calls. So we could allow Miss A to have a sleepover with a friend. It would be within our judgment that we have met the family, that we feel like it's a safe situation, and that family doesn't have to go through special training or anything. They don't have to get certified. For a vacation, I feel like that could fall under prudent parenting, but it also could fall under, hey, this has to get like officially approved, and that family, the friend's family, has to go through certain like classes or get fingerprinted at least, go down to the county and get fingerprinted and background checked. So that's another like gray area where it could go either way, and I feel like for the purposes of a screenplay, you could kind of write it either way, and it could be viewed as accurate depending on where they are. So if the child's permanency plan becomes adoption, essentially, do the foster parents get to consider it, or does the state just automatically start searching for someone who's looking for a child to adopt? We are licensed for foster and adoption.
Mm-hmm.
It's good for the family and for the child. My understanding from when we were getting trained is that the foster parents do kind of become the first logical consideration. And that's honestly to benefit the child because they've already
been displaced,
Yeah,
and you just don't want to like keep displacing children.
Yeah, keep moving them around. And there's, a chance that adoption to a new family might not work out. And so, if the family is considering adoption and the child, feels like they're, comfortable in that home, then the foster family, would get the first consideration. Do foster parents have any sort of rights, or does every decision regarding the child go through the social worker?
We don't have many rights.
And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
The child has rights, the family has rights, and as foster parents, you are signing up for the fact that, you're agreeing to those rights. Yeah. And that's really, really important. So it's not really the caseworker in the county that would have rights. They're making decisions based on what's best for the child and the family.
Yeah, obviously you can't call a social worker for every single decision.
Yeah.
That's why they have the prudent parenting. If the parents do something that maybe wasn't approved by the caseworker, the parents can at least say, like, look, we thought this would be under the prudent parenting.
Yeah.
Obviously not everything falls under there, but there are certain things where you just got to make a decision.
So, for example, and again, for the purposes of this screenplay, because I want to answer those directly, the biological dad has passed away, and the mother isn't in the life of the child.
She would still have rights.
The child would have rights. I feel like at 16, the
mother
child...
would too.
Yes, but they can't get a hold of the mother. So for that, I feel like for the purposes of these direct questions, the caseworker, the social worker, and the child, because the child in the screenplay is 16.
Right.
I think that they would have they would be making the decisions.
Yeah.
Those two together.
But yeah, if you wanted to like have a wild card at the end of the play and the mom shows up, basically the mom could do almost anything she wanted.
Yes. That is true.
Even though she's out of the picture.
Correct. And that includes, we talked about it in a video, but like there are religious rights for the child, and so at 16, like a child would be old enough to like make those decisions for themselves. Like I said, these are great questions that she's asking, and that's why we wanted to share them with everybody, because these are questions that we get, and we want to educate everybody about some things that are happening in foster care. Can foster parents provide kids with things like debit cards, cell phones, etc.? What kind of help does the state provide to offset the cost?
Debit cards, no.
Yep.
We cannot open any kind of bank account for Miss A or any foster kids we have.
The caseworker can.
Yeah, the caseworker can. Cell phones, yes.
Mm-hmm.
That's a case-by-case basis, obviously.
Yep. And we've gotten questions specifically about Miss A. She's 14. We provided her with a cell phone. And, people have opinions.
Sawyer's not very happy.
No. People have had opinions, which, fine to have your opinions. We know Miss A and we know Miss A's family to an extent. And, if you have a responsible child who is going to be having some freedoms, You want to make sure that you can get a hold of that child. So it depends on the kid. The foster parent really can make a lot of those decisions at their discretion. Sawyer's now asleep, so we're gonna try to get through the rest of these questions. So basically, I think the foster parents typically can have, it's up to the foster parents on like what they can provide the kid.
They have to obviously provide basic needs, food, clothes, like shoes. It's just when you get into like the extras, like does a kid need a phone?
Yeah, I mean, it honestly depends on the kid. I mean, we had a situation where, like, depending on transportation to a school, you need to be able to get a hold of that kid.
Yep.
And how else are they going to get a hold of you if they are locked outside of the school and have missed, transportation hasn't shown up? That was a real case for us.
Yep.
And if they hadn't have had a cell phone, we would have not been able to get a hold of them. So, again, it depends on the kid. It depends on the circumstances. But ultimately, it's up to the foster parent, unless the caseworker or, if the biological parents are still there, unless they feel strongly about something. And also, so the state, what does the state provide to offset costs? So for Ohio, there is a per diem. It's an amount of money that is meant to cover, all of the basic needs. So like shelter, food,
clothing,
the extra water. For us, it kind of covers things like, we spend more on groceries, but also because we're running around a lot more, we tend to eat out a little bit more. So, it kind of goes to cost like that so that we don't have to stress about, well, we have to order pizza again.
Fun stuff, like we just went to Scene 75 last weekend.
Yeah, so, getting the kids involved in stuff. So there is an amount of money that's provided by the state of Ohio to offset some of those costs. If the child were to get into a dangerous situation and the foster parents got in trouble, is there any sort of proceedings or hearing to determine whether or not the child would remain with the foster parents or not? So I think this is talking about like an investigation that would happen. My understanding of this, and again, if there are people who know more than us, which is probably a lot of people, please comment below. If there was to be like an accusation where we either did something that could put the child in danger or, harm or, any kind of an accusation, the caseworker would handle it the same way they would with, a biological family and a child. So my understanding is that they would use their judgment, and if they needed to, remove the child from the foster parent's home. While
foster parents can lose their license.
They can,
potentially too. So.
Yeah, so they would remove the child while the investigation was occurring. And I don't know exactly what that looks like. I think just like a lot of interviews with the child, with the foster parents, with anyone involved. Yeah, the foster parents could lose their license if it was found that they did something that was harmful or dangerous or anything like that. I don't know if there's like a proceeding or a hearing. It's just kind of considered an investigation.
Yeah.
Is there anything specifically you would want to see portrayed to make the story realistic in regards to foster care? What elements would make the storyline more relatable, and any stereotypes that should be avoided? We love this question so much. So let's break it down. So to make things realistic, I think I would want them to try to have the caseworker find kinship care.
First, because that is almost always what they do first, is let's see if we can find kinship care before they go down the road of foster care.
Yeah, so even if they're in an emergency placement, the caseworker would still be trying to find someone who could take the child because, they might be a teacher, they might be a neighbor, they might be an aunt or an uncle. And I think it's more realistic. I think if you want it to be more realistic, I think that the child would have to go to a couple of different homes. You could have a child go to emergency foster care and then they find kinship, but then, that kinship provider that, let's say like the aunt, they have a dog and the child is allergic to dogs. Okay, well, then they can't stay there anymore. Right. So they have to go, back into a foster care home, and then maybe they'll find kinship again, and then maybe that won't work out. So I think the bouncing around is a reality of the foster care system, and, it's not fair to the kids, but it is a reality. What else do you think would make it relatable?
I'd say when the kid's first placed into foster care, don't make it one big happy family. There's definitely an adjustment period. Just trying to learn, the kid's personality and making them feel like they are at home and safe and comfortable. And there's a lot of alone time for the kids, at least with our 2 placements, just to kind of let them be alone and, let them know that when they want to talk or hang out, like, we're here.
Maybe portraying the honeymoon period where, everything is good for a couple of weeks, but then as people in the family get comfortable, you're just like any other family where you get on each other's nerves for certain things. I think also showing different like trauma triggers would be really realistic. There are certain things that, depending on what the child goes through, can bring up some strong emotional reactions. So I think that would make it realistic. Because as much as we say, like, these kids are just kids, they also have been through some serious trauma. And so I remember when we were in training, there was a foster dad who was talking about how one of the girls, she was triggered by, like, the doorbell ringing.
Yeah.
So anytime, like, somebody came to the door, even if it was just the pizza delivery man, like, she would never be able to open the door because she came from a home where, people were coming in and out of the house that were not safe. And so she was always afraid of that. So I think finding like some relatable triggers, because that's what these kids have to deal with. Any stereotypes that should be avoided?
Lots. If you've seen the movie Instant Family,
yes,
there's a lot of misnomers and bad stereotypes.
Mm-hmm.
The thing that bugged me the most is throughout the movie, they just continue to trash the biological parents.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they called them horrible names. They judged them for a lot of things they shouldn't have been judging them for. They cast this negative, horrible light on the biological parents. And it's just not what foster care is about, because all too often people just focus solely on the kids in foster care, and really the whole story is reunification with the parents. And it's the parents learning from a mistake they made and becoming better people because of it and getting their kids back.
Yeah.
It's not about us. It's not about us, like,
getting a child.
Yeah, that's not what the point is. Yeah.
Oh, like, they're ours now. I think that is something, again, this is a screenplay, so it's a different circumstance, but I think that stressing that foster care is pretty much temporary until permanency is found for these kids, and it might end up that they're going to get adopted by that foster family, but I wouldn't want to see the foster family like trying to keep the child right out of the gate. They should be maybe looking for the mom, looking for kinship, knowing that that's the best solution for that child's future. I think another stereotype is just, yes, there are kids who have bad behaviors. There are normal kids with bad behaviors, and there are foster kids with bad behaviors. But I wouldn't want these kids to be shown as having all of these issues. I think that's something that, and also something that being scared of the kid, or like, oh, make sure like the kid isn't alone with your biological kids or your husband. Like if it's a female, this is a 16-year-old female in this screenplay, oh, make sure, if she's alone with the dad, then he's going to get accused of something. And those are the type of stereotypes that I don't think should be perpetuated.
Yeah.
Anything else? I feel like this is such a good question.
It is a good question.
Feel free to comment below if you have some too. I feel like if I thought about this longer, I might be able to come up with some other ones. So Caitlin, I will message you if I think of other things. I think probably there might be like a healthy balance of showing, the caseworkers, that they do care, because I think most of them do. They wouldn't be doing it if they didn't. They're limited with like resources. I don't want to speak for the caseworkers who watch our videos, but I think that tends to be the norm, is that like you do care, that's why you're doing the work, but you're so limited by time, and you have a lot of kids that you have to look out for. Yeah. So I feel like that might be a really accurate way to show how the system is just kind of strapped. Oh, if you know of any resources that may be helpful or any contacts for CPS, that would be great. I'm also trying to get in touch with social workers for their perspective. That'd be great. And maybe if there are people who are watching who want to be involved with this, maybe comment below and we can have Caitlin apply to you and maybe you can get connected. But yeah, we wanted to be able to like crowdsource this information. I hope that we answered.
Yeah, I hope so too.
I hope we answered.
I want to see the play.
I know, right? This is really exciting. And Caitlin is such a sweetheart. So she reached out and then, she asked if we could answer some questions. And then she sent us a little like thank you gift for like taking the time to like answer these.
It's really nice. Thank you,
It was
Caitlin.
super, super nice. So
Sweet.
she saw, she knows that we're in the Cincinnati area. So she even went to Groupon and saved some money, which we always appreciate that. So she sent us a Groupon that we can go as a family to Dave & Buster's, which is just kind of like a fun arcade type of place. So I know the kids will love that. We will be going in the next couple of weeks. And hopefully Miss A's other siblings will be able to come too, because we're trying to get them all together. So that might be something that we do.
That's it for this video, guys.
Yeah. Thanks for watching.
If you've never been to onesimple.org, please go check it out. A lot of people ask on how they can give back, and that is a great way to give back.
Yes. All right. See you next time.
Bye.